This is the Healthy Business Podcast, the show for ambitious business owners who want to grow and scale in a healthy way. I'm Sarah Cook, and I'll be sharing with you tips, inspiration, and proven methods from leading business experts, entrepreneurs, and health and wellness professionals to help you grow your business with more income and having more impact, but in a way that works for you. Because when you have clarity and strategy, you can achieve the results you want. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Healthy Business Podcast. I'm joined by the wonderful Skye Barbour, who is a business and leadership strategist. And I am so excited to be chatting to Skye today. I know we have lots of similar values on business and freedom and flexibility. So I think we're going to have a really interesting conversation. So Skye, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me along today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation too.
Me too. It's going to be brilliant, I think. So as I said, you are really keen on kind of helping clients reaching full freedom, scaling quickly, less stress, more time to do what they love. Kind of sounds the dream, right?
I was going to say that when you say it like that, I'm like, oh, why wasn't everyone want this? It sounds so dreamy. Yeah, but I suppose I hold this deep belief that actually, probably from my childhood, like business isn't always easy and you have to apply yourself and work hard. And I'm always looking for ways to make it simpler and easier. That's kind of my thinking behind it.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I suppose I don't want to be like, oh, it's just a silver bullet. Everything's really like perfect, because I don't believe that's true.
Yeah. And we are both mums. We're both juggling. You are also a farmer's wife. You have run your own successful business. And so much of this is kind of what you teach is kind of where you've come from as well. So before we delve into all of that, one of the questions that I always ask my guests is, what does a healthy business mean to you? And I think this is going to be a really interesting answer. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, no pressure. No pressure. We were talking about this last week when you kindly came in onto my podcast. Like we both are very similar in terms of how we view like health and life and business. Like to me, I look holistically. It's got to work for you as an individual at a human level, not just a business level. So to me, a healthy business is one that the business owner, 80 to 90% of the time, is the realist in me comes out, enjoys what they do, is fulfilled in what they do, and is able to open doors for opportunities that they want to create for themselves from their business. It's about being completely aligned to your business, your strengths, your genius, like the way in which what lights you up so that you feel satisfied and fulfilled. And I think that has such a positive effect on how you show up in your family life, how you show up to your friends, what do you do for yourself, how you show up to your team. And I think the ripple effect of that is huge. So to me, a healthy business is one that allows you as the individual owning that business to be at your best, to be the best you can be.
It is music to my ears. You're right. We have had this conversation on your podcast as well. And I think we're so similarly aligned in not just the kind of values, but actually helping other people get to those levels of different freedom, but based in a way that works for them. And that's really where you come in from a leadership perspective, isn't it? You know, your big thing is leadership, helping people, step into that role of the CEO and leading their business in a way that works for them. And as part of that, you help people build a team, their dream team. And I really want to delve into this today, because I think when people get to a point of needing to scale or to outsource or bring people in to support them so that they can, really step into their zone of genius properly, that can feel quite scary, can't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And for someone who teaches this and has led teams of hundreds and hundreds of people, it's damn scary. And it's even more scary when it's your own money in your own business. I completely get that. And I made the mistakes, which is why I was like, whoa. I came into this online world and I thought like you had to do it the online way, which is just hire a VA, attempt to outsource stuff, although you don't really know what it is you want them to do. You just know you need help. Not really communicate with them, let them ghost you. And the whole conversation is like, why am I paying someone else to do this when I'm ending up doing it myself or having to pick up the pieces myself? So having fallen down those rabbit holes or those issues, but knowing a lot better, I was like, why am I not practicing what I preach? Why am I not taking what I've done for my whole career in corporate and before that and helping other people do this? Because what I recognize is this jump between you being, I call it the doer, but that solopreneur where everything lands on your plate and you need 8 hands to be the social media manager and the accounts person and the delivery person and the cleaner at home and the carer if you have children or whatever it might be. You need so many arms. And at some point you realize, like, Christ, this job's really busy. And if I don't work, I don't make any money. Yes, I can have passive products and group programs, which are brilliant, but I still need to create, market, and sell those. I need help. And bridging that gap is so difficult. Most people do not know how to effectively and get burnt in the process. And that's what I really am passionate about, making sure that whether you're a solopreneur or you're scaling, you know, I work with some multi-7-figure business owners who have teams of 20, 30, 40, who want to grow even further and remove themselves entirely. But the principles, Sarah, they're the same. They're exactly the same. And it can be daunting, which is why it's not just a practical thing. It's very much a mindset side of things as well.
Yeah. And you touched on there a little bit around the kind of integration of your personal life as well. You know, a cleaner is part of your team and childcare is part of your team as well. That's the thing that allows you to be in your business. And I think some people feel that they can't outsource some of those things, that they need to be that complete superhero to juggle everything. But, you know, as you said, it's not possible to scale if we haven't got support around us. And actually, you don't have to do it on your own. And actually, you're much better if you don't do it on your own, because that's not all, you know, we can't be good at everything.
No, that's so true. But, you know, society tells us, or culturally, like, how to parent. You know, I know it's getting better and it has improved, but you know, a farmer's wife, like, they're in the dark ages. My mother-in-law was like, why do you not want to, like, cook dinner every night for your husband and, like, basically have his pipe and slippers with ready? And which my husband doesn't smoke a pipe or have slippers, but you know what I mean? The saying of just looking after them. Like, I don't understand why you want to work. And I always knew I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted this independence. I wanted financial freedom. I wanted time freedom. And I didn't want to be relying on someone else to create it. But I also knew with my husband's business, he was, to start with, the main breadwinner in the family. And yeah, it's about teamwork, and you can't just do everything by yourself. And kind of getting over those struggles. I was from a farming background as well. And my mum gave up everything, gave up her dream, gave up her business to look after us 4 children. And yeah, she had a little bit of help, but not a huge amount. And I saw her being like the martyr the whole time. And I thought, that's how I should be, but I don't want to be. So I felt like I was being rebellious. And I also think, like, I started talking about this 5 years ago when I entered the online space. Not really people weren't talking about outsourcing that much. And they certainly weren't talking about outsourcing home life and home help. But I viewed it as, if I wanted to, where are my skills best being placed? And at the start, I was like, I want to free some time from my newborn baby and work in my business. That was more fun and easy. Nothing to say about stay-at-home moms, but good on you. It couldn't be me. I needed to work just for my own sanity. And so I got my mother-in-law in to help me 2 days a week. And I said to her, like, you're part of my team. I didn't pay her, but I still thought of her and treated her like a very special team member in terms of communication and kind of care and appreciation. I think it's so easy for us to think about, like, how, you know, home help is so different to business help. But to me, it's all about freeing up your time. So it doesn't matter if it's the home or the business help. It's all about a blend. So you can create the role in life you want to live.
And that's really what it's all about, isn't it? It is life.
Exactly. And for some people like me, that will be never touching a washing machine, never doing a piece of ironing. And I mean, yeah, never taking a bin out. I mean, I know those sound so obvious, but I honestly don't put the washing on ever. I have 2 small children, 4 and 1. So and a farming husband. So there's a lot of it, but I didn't want to do that. It's not that I think I'm above it or anything like that. It's just why, like, I've got this help there, and I have an amazing woman who just thinks housekeeping and home help is just the most enjoyable thing in the world. And you get so much satisfaction from it. I'm like, play to your strengths, I'll play to mine. And that's how we do it. But getting over sorry, I can talk quite a lot. Sorry, I have to.
No, I love it. But no, I think it's playing to your strengths, isn't it? That's the key thing here. And it's looking at, when you're running your own business, life and work is integrated completely. And you have to look at that whole broad spectrum, that holistic perspective of where is your time spent? Because we have only got 24 hours in a day. Mm-hmm. And if your time is better spent in your business, doing those things, serving your clients, your customers, whatever, then find some ways that frees up that time that from your perspective, means, you know, that home support is vital. And I think that's really important, of not being, you know, I hear so many people feeling like they're guilty, or that they need to apologize for having that home help, because they feel like they should. And this word should comes up a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's just like, actually, where are you know, play to your strengths. I think that's the kind of the key takeout from this, is really have that awareness. Like, what are you good at? What do you enjoy? I'm one of those strange people that actually quite enjoys ironing. So I don't outsource that, because that's my kind of, I can do that on autopilot. That's my switch off time. Cleaning, I don't enjoy. So I do outsource that. And I think being really honest with yourself is absolutely the way to do it, and having that awareness, and then getting that support as and when and where you need it.
And I think there's a difference between like, where are you said the words about like best where are you better to spend your time, or something like that. And I think often, and I'm going to generalize here, sweeping statement, but as women, we feel like, you know, we need to be the ones being responsible for things and being like sacrificing our time. And what I really want to show people is that we have choice. Like, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume that we are some of the privileged people in the world, but we have a degree of choice and we can create things for ourselves. So it's not a case of like, oh, you know, sometimes I find myself in the moment, I'm just reviewing when I'm working, and I'm like, oh, I'm probably better to spend more sales time on a Wednesday and create content, but I don't want to. I want to spend it with my 1-year-old or my other ones at school. And so it's just about deciding, how do you want life to be, and knowing that you can make that a reality. And if it's all right, can I share a personal story on this?
Yeah, I'd love you to.
So one of the reasons why I started this business is because, you know, I had an amazing childhood, and so many things I'm forever thankful for my parents. But one of the biggest things I learned was that you could either be a great mummy or earn great money. So my dad never did anything with us 4 children. He just worked constantly. My mum gave up her business to look after us 4, and we had a great time. But I really missed that interaction with my dad, and like the emotional interaction and relationship. And what I know now is he didn't know how to delegate effectively. He didn't know how to create systems. He didn't know how to organize structure. But what I find really challenging is I felt like he was choosing to work, like always choosing to work. And so this year, in June, I took my family on a big holiday, kind of just to thank them for always being so generous and kind to us. And my brother and I hired out a massive villa in Portugal, and we had so many things arranged, and people flying in from America, and big meals and parties. It was a big deal for us to do this, and all other halves and everyone coming, and the first holiday with the children because of COVID and all of this stuff. My dad told me he couldn't come because he was working. Like, he's 65 now. And okay, it was a difficult time of year for farming, but it took him an hour before the taxi left to go to the airport to change his mind. We all had to like basically beg him and tell him it's not a family holiday without him, and what was the whole point of this. And he came, he said he was going to stay for 2 nights. He ended up extending it to 3. But it was such a good reminder of like, what is the lesson I need to take from this? It's a reminder that you can have all the practical things in play. You can know all the stuff, but unless you change your mindset as to how to grow your business, unless you realize you can do both, and you miss out if you just focus on one, then nothing really changes. And I have to remind myself when I'm, you know, making some of those choices at times, that it is a choice. But that's how I learned what it's like when you don't have these things in place. And I know what it can be like when you do have these things in place, and often feel a bit rebellious saying that to my parents. But I share that story because if anyone's like, you know, working hard and wanting the best for people, that's absolutely admirable. But let's just look at like, where can you free up time to spend more memories and connection time with the people you love?
And I think the big word that for me that sort of stands out really is that word choice, because it's different for everybody. And I think that's also really important, that your version of success is going to be completely different to someone else's, because we do have different family setups. We've got different financial aspirations. We've got different holiday goals. You know, we're saving for different things, or whatever is important to us is going to be different for everyone. And that is absolutely okay.
Yes.
I remember seeing someone posting on social media saying, you know, that she was so happy that she'd given her team kind of an extra day off every week, and how that was success. And I was like, actually, that's really interesting, because, you know, for a lot of people, they don't necessarily want to have an extra day off. They want to work in a way that works for them. So it might be that extra day off, but it might be shortened days every day, or it might just be having that complete flexibility that you choose as and when you work. And I think that's okay too. Like there is no definition for success. It all comes down to that personal choice.
Yeah.
And I think
there's no judgment, exactly as you said. There's no right or wrong. The only time I think it's right or wrong is if you think it's what you should do rather than what you really want to do, which we've touched upon.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those hard questions, isn't it? Is that people don't necessarily stop to think about what they want because they've grown up in a certain society views and norms and beliefs, and that is a mindset thing. It is really challenging sometimes to go, actually, do you know what do I want?
Yeah.
And you
versus what do I need?
Yeah.
So I find it really easy to see what I need and easy to justify, oh, I really need this.
Yeah.
When I bought a piece of jewelry for myself the other day, and it went through my head was like, yeah, we don't need this. I was like, yeah, but I want it. Yeah, but you don't need it, Skye. And then I felt guilty to start with. I had to really say, no, I'm choosing to spend this money on myself.
Yeah.
But that felt really hard at times. I know it sounds so like pathetic, doesn't it? Like, oh, poor woe's me. But I don't mean to share it like that. I just mean for, anyone who is thinking like they need to justify things by need or value or discount or whatever, that's fine. But just remember to think about like, what do I want? That doesn't necessarily be materialistic things. How do I want life to be?
Yeah, they're really important. And actually that changes as well. As children get older, as life changes, that can change. So it's important that you have those check-ins regularly. I want to go back into kind of outsourcing and people and growing a team and really stepping into that leadership, because we touched on it that, people find it difficult to know what to outsource. But I think there's also then that next phase of how do you even outsource? Like, where do you start with this? I'd love your take on this.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's relatively simple. Knowing what to do is relatively simple. It doesn't mean it's simple to implement because often we get in our own way. But ultimately, it's about defining, okay, what things am I doing that are outside my talent zone or outside my zone of genius, or a low value task that I need to remove from my plate to create time to do some of the higher value tasks. So you may have heard the analogy, or you may have used the analogy like the £10, £100, £1,000 task type thing. I think of it more as like a ladder. So there's runs on the ladder. You want to go up the ladder. You can't see me because this is a podcast, but I'm using my arms to climb a ladder to think about the value tasks you do. So typically you want to free yourself up to do marketing, to do sales in the early days, to actually work with clients. We want to remove you from some of the tech stuff that may take you forever, but it's just keeping you busy and stuck. Or we might want to remove you from some administration or home help stuff that's just great procrastination and stops you working in your business. That's going to be different for every person. But it's about being specific. So one of my absolute bugbears, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant now, Sarah, so you might have to rein me in. But one of my bugbears is people saying, I just need a VA. Wait, what? Or what does that mean? Like a virtual assistant? Yes, okay, there's the traditional take on like administrative PA type stuff. But in reality, there are so many talented people out there under the label of virtual assistants. It's like, well, what do you need? What do you want? So it's about finding and defining the role you want someone to do. And the way you know what you want someone to do is either you don't enjoy doing it, it takes way too much time and is low value, or it's outside your zone of genius. Those three things. Then you create a list of all those tasks and you think, well, this is a bit start of a job description. But you want to also think about not just what someone does, but the outcome someone owns. So by doing these tasks, what is it that they're going to achieve? So for example, you might want someone to post on social media for you every day. You don't just want them to post on social media for you every day. You want them to build visibility, build engagement, build whatever the metric might be, the outcome that you want for doing that task. And that's where so many people go wrong. They delegate tasks, they don't delegate outcomes. And by that, you just get someone coming in, ticking a box and leaving. And I'm generalizing, there are some brilliant people out there. But equally, there's only two things that get people upset, and that is time and money. If it's someone spending too much time or money or too little time or money on something, frustration builds. So you want to be really clear about the task and outcome, the type of person or the type of ways you want to work. It's not about type of person. It's more like, do you want someone to come to a team meeting? Do you want someone to be on call every day? Are you happy that this person just goes off on their own accord and works whenever and just checks in with you once a month. How do you want to work? Because that is as important as in what you want someone to do. And from that, you just advertise. But my goodness, make sure you follow a hiring process. Don't just say yes to the first person who answers your ad.
Yeah. And also, having been through that process when I was looking for some support, it's not just speaking to one person, I think, as well. It's having conversation with lots of different people, getting not necessarily testimonials, but seeing the type of work that they've already done, and so that you can see how they work and that kind of thing as well. It's really important.
Obviously, application, we do video applicants, then we get them to do like an exercise, depending on what role it is. Then we do the interviews for people. So actually it's quite rigorous, and that is for also maybe not quite so rigorous for freelancers, but we do that for freelancers as well. Because at the end of the day, I just hate this idea of this like throwaway economy we've got. And I'm using VAs as an example, but so many people tell me like, oh, I've just been through 3 VAs. I'm like, okay, what's the common denominator? You. So let's not beat ourselves up here. You've probably never been taught how to manage people, but let's upskill ourselves, because you're wasting a lot of time trying to find someone, hire someone, upskill someone, only for them to leave. That's not efficient on your time or your money. So let's do it right first time.
Yeah. And it's interesting actually, because I think it's going back to the type of thing to outsource. I know social media is one of those things that people just like, oh, that's my big bugbear. It takes up a lot of time. I just want to outsource that. But it's really interesting because that has a huge impact on your business. So, that is a huge marketing piece of content. And, my background was coming from kind of marketing strategy and that kind of thing. Social media is actually one of the last things that I recommend people to outsource, because it's you are the face of your business, and people are coming to work with you, they're paying to work with you. So it might be that there are portions of that process that you can outsource rather than necessarily the whole thing. But I think if you're going into it expecting someone to replicate you without giving them that kind of training or that guidance or that framework, or even, as you say, those metrics, you're putting them in a really hard position. Absolutely. And that's not fair on them. So it is definitely a kind of a two-way, plus taking that responsibility, I think, as well.
There's I'm always talking to people about setting them up for success. We've actually just started an experiment where we've got 3 clients on. We do their social media for them, like it's called social support, just as a trial, because I have someone in the team who's absolutely phenomenal at copy and branding and everything. And it's really interesting getting how people want to work, and how do we measure success, and how does someone, like you said, understand the tone of voice and stuff. But I'm a big believer that you can outsource all of those things. However, if you are brilliant at copy and storytelling, don't outsource that bit. Maybe outsource the repurposing of it, or the content storage side of this. If you're brilliant at the strategy and really interested in learning about, I'm preaching to you, and I really shouldn't be, because Sarah, this is totally your bag, but I completely agree. There is a section you can outsource, as long as you've got really clear expectations. What does good look like, and how do you know, and how do you bridge that gap if someone over exceeds, which is amazing, or underachieves? How do you bridge that gap? Definitely. And so people are scared to have those conversations. They don't want to upset people, and they just run away. And in my world, that's I say the worst thing to do. I don't mean that like it's not terrible, but it's so much easier just to learn how to have the conversations.
Definitely. And that's part of business as well, isn't it? That is part of stepping into that leadership role, and managing people, managing businesses and things as well. It's really, really important.
I don't know about you, but even though I was working, when I first started this business, I was working with people who were like multi-6, 7-figure business owners. And I was like telling everyone my first £20,000 in business. So I felt like I was completely winging it. Like my business wasn't big enough, ready enough. Like it just felt like I don't say a hobby, I was charging for it, but a bit of a fraud in many ways. And it took me a while for me to realize, okay, and I see this with a lot with people in that doing stage who just think, oh, I'm not big enough, ready enough, like consistent enough to outsource. And what I would say is you can start getting help in at as little as like 5 hours a month. And I've done this with a client, and she has created a third extra time in the week and was able to have a social life, hobbies, a relationship, and build her business by 25% without putting her prices up. For outsourcing, it was £50 a month. Sorry. That's what she outsourced, £50 a month. So you can start somewhere, but don't leave it until it's too late, because the more proactive you can be in this, the better it will be long term. Now, that doesn't mean if you're not doing anything, like you should outsource before you've got going. But people say to me, oh, it's like that chicken and egg scenario. But I want you to see investing, like hiring or getting someone in your team or outsourcing, is an investment, not a cost. Yes, if I was an accountant, I would know it is a cost, clearly. But I want you to look at it as though it was a marketing investment. What are you going to get off a return? And therefore, you should be able to leverage your time going up that ladder again to some higher income tasks. And if you can't, then you need to question that investment.
So true. I think, within any expense, cost, whatever you want to call it, looking at that return on investment gives you a totally different perspective from it. Especially when you think, okay, well, if I outsource, that 5 hours, I'll use your client's example, 5 hours a month. What could you be doing during that 5 hours that actually you could probably be making a hell of a lot more money than if you were staying stuck in whatever it is that you're looking to outsource?
The other interesting thing about Flora in that example, this is the horse physio. So she traveled the country dealing with horses. And we didn't bring anyone else into her team. Like, that all stayed the same. But one of the biggest things was the £50 we outsourced. We took off so much mental worry that she actually started sleeping. She had so much more bandwidth and energy. The hours she was putting into the business was so much less, but her output was so much higher, and her enjoyment for life was so much more. So you can see how such a small thing of £50 a month, which is, tiny really, could make such a dramatic, life-changing difference. I even had a boyfriend phone me up being like, Flora's a different person. Like, thank you so much. So I use that as an example because people hear team and outsourcing and think high cost, real complications and difficultness. It can have all of those things, but they tend to be my clients over £500,000. But earlier on in business, it can be small amounts of money and time commitment, but it can be such a game changer.
It's so interesting. And I want to just touch on that idea of building a team with freelancers versus employees, technically, because I think you're right. I think that idea, that word team, people assume it's a permanent thing, that they're having to pay, payroll, they're having to pay holiday, sickness, all that kind of stuff. And that can feel quite scary for a lot of people, because that is you stepping up into that, business rather than kind of solopreneur and outsourcing certain things. But you can have a team of freelancers just as much as you can with permanent people.
Absolutely. So, I don't profess to be an HR expert and, all the legal consequences of doing either. But what I would say is the way you treat people. I'm an expert in working with people and creating the right culture. And whether you have freelancers or whether you have employees, it's the way in which you work together as one team with one vision, one goal, one way of working that makes the difference between success or failure of that. And you're absolutely right. It doesn't make a difference in terms of how I call them a team or not. It's the way of working. And I just got off a phone call today with a client who turns over 600,000-700,000, and she has a team of freelancers because she's international, always location moving, and wants that way of working completely virtually. Whereas I have other clients who have teams that are only in-house and full-time. On a personal note, I love building key roles in-house because whilst it does feel more daunting and more responsibility, the return on investment is so much better. Like, you can, through having employees and bringing them into this world, it is so much better value than for freelancers if you want someone dedicated for your team. And the way I work, and I believe to grow to 7 figures, you do need to have a limit and a small number of dedicated people or someone else beyond just you dedicated in your business, and still use freelancers for other roles. Absolutely. But my personal belief is to get to 7 figures, and it is an advantage and a financial advantage to bring those key roles in-house. Doesn't mean you have to.
No, I agree with you. And I think it goes back to that people dynamics, doesn't it? Of having those shared values, those shared visions that if you've got someone who is in-house, they are more invested to make that business successful to a certain extent, because if you're not growing, you're not scaling, then it does have an impact on them and their salary and all the rest of it. And I think that is really important. So yeah, I think again, it goes back to, there is no right way to build a team other than the one that works for you. And I think it's just where you're at within your business growth, what you're looking to outsource, and knowing that there are different options.
Yeah, and I see it done wrong a lot, of people who just abdicate stuff or don't communicate effectively or hold on to stuff or micromanaging, controlling, and it comes from positive intent, most of those things, but it can go wrong quite quickly. What I love to share with people though is when you get it right, like and right doesn't mean perfect, but when you get majority of the ducks, the right people in the right place of the business, like the difference is night and day in growing this business. And if I just kind of really briefly talk you through, right, once you're that doer, you need to find like those key roles to build around you so you can drive the business to the next level. Most decisions and delegation still comes through you, but you might have a cleaner, you might have, for me, it was a childminder and or a nanny and some admin support, or a bookkeeper, or you're building a team around you, so things still happen. Although you don't do things every single day, all day, every day, things can happen without you, but nothing gets driven forward without you, because you are that driver or momentum of the business. The next phase is the really interesting one, when you can be the designer of your business. And that's really when you start building the shared values, the shared way of working. And people really feel empowered. I think it's an overused word, but it's true. They feel ownership over what they do, and they feel like they can make decisions on your behalf within parameters, which of course you've set. And all of a sudden then you've got things happening when you're off on a holiday for a week, or heaven forbid, my son was in hospital a few weeks ago, and things happened in the business without me. So that's when you're at that designer stage, it can make such a difference. But that means you have to remove yourself from the middle of the business, and that's again the next phase that people struggle with, but it's totally doable. And I think I came into the online world, gosh, I've done lots of like ranty things, Sarah, I apologize, but I'm hoping this is useful for your audience. But came into the online world and it looked like everyone could just do this off on a phone and have no help at all. And I tried and I failed miserably. What I would say is, actually the really successful people in this world and within an online business may think that they don't have a lot of people behind them, but they do have support. And it's about finding the right support for you and working in a way that feels good, that allows you to have that life and role and healthy business, as we just talked about.
Yeah, and it goes right back to what we were talking about at the beginning, of that choice, that freedom, being that leader, and designing your business to support your life rather than your life fitting around your business. And I think that's a really, really, really key thing to take away from this conversation, is that it's about building those right foundations, and you can do that right from the start without having to without having to kind of outsource some of the big stuff initially. Getting that home help support, whatever that looks like, even if it is after school clubs, or not feeling guilty for that. I got to a point, I remember, with my children, and I was picking them up every single day at kind of 3:15, and it's a really short day. If you're dropping them off at kind of 9:00, then you're doing a bit of something for you, whether that's exercise or whatever, and I need that, then suddenly I've got half a day to get everything done. And I was then just not being present once I'd picked the kids up, but I was doing it because I felt I should do. And then I thought, you know what, 2 days a week, I'm going to put them into after school club, because I know that a lot of their friends are there anyway. That gives me 2 full days to work and just crack through stuff in the way that I want to. And it's been a complete game changer. I mean, then COVID hit, which was great, but that's a whole other story. But I think having that, giving yourself permission to know that your children are going to be okay. In fact, they loved the fact that they could be at after school club with their friends. I still had them 3 days a week after school. We still did stuff every day together. But actually, it meant a lot for me. It gave me that fulfillment as Sarah, rather than just being mum. And we've had this conversation before of kind of, if you're used to having being a high achiever and you're used to kind of being ambitious and growing, I love being a mum, but actually that doesn't define me. And I think that's really important to remember, that, you know, the shoulds versus the wants is really, really key when you're looking at those foundations of your business and how you want to run your week, your days, your business and your life. It's what it all comes down to. So yeah, I totally agree with you. One thing I do want to just pick up before we kind of close off is something you talk a little bit about, is the idea of behavioral blind spots. And I really would love to, because when we're so in our business, it's really difficult sometimes to kind of see, you know, outside of that. There's a brilliant phrase that I heard recently of kind of, when you're in the jam jar, you can't see the label on the outside, or what's written on the label on the outside. And I love that one. A different one to I've heard of a few variations, but I think it's true, isn't it? You know, sometimes have got those blinkers on because we're so driven on getting the results that we want to, that we don't give ourselves that chance to stop and think. So I want to delve into a little bit around your behavioral blind spot method.
Yeah. So I see this in corporate people, when I ran a charity as well, social enterprise, right the way through to the online business world. Like, this is just people. And I find myself working with and resonating with a lot of women, because I have been one of those that sacrifice ourselves in terms of time or what it is that we want for others. And what I realized, and I call this a cycle of sacrifice, whereby the pressure hits and this certain behavior comes out that ultimately is there to keep us safe, but doesn't allow us to really take that next leap to grow a business with freedom. So there's 4 main blocks that come up. We've got the responsibility block, the critical block, the independence block, and the busy block. So I'll just briefly give a review, but I do have a quiz on this if anyone's interested in finding out which is affecting them right now for free. The responsibility block is the belief that, you know, you care about everyone so much. You are just such a people person. You kind of, it's not just people pleasing, like you just feel a real sense of duty, that you are the one volunteering for stuff at home or, you know, outside of school. You've ended up taking the lead role in some child association, you know, school thing that you weren't planning on doing because you just felt so responsible. And the same in work. You may blow your boundaries for clients. You're always bending over backwards. You're the one extending the sessions because you want them to get the best result. The responsibility block, yeah, you just deeply care for people, but it always means that everyone else comes before you. The critical block is that thinking that everything has to be just right before it's shared. Like, you can't delegate a task because you don't know how to do it completely yourself. I can't share that offer on social media because I don't exactly know what it's called and what's included and haven't got the branding done. You know, it's that whole idea that things have to be, you know, negative voice in your head, that things have to be right and perfect before being shared. The third one is the independence block. We talked about that superwoman syndrome. This definitely links to the independence block. A little bit of like, I used to see it in the alpha males that I work with a lot, in terms of I had to be strong, hold it all in, not show too much vulnerability. But, you know, in a crisis, you're the one that people want to go to because you just get stuff done and you are reliable. But it also means you do a bit of everything and you don't always play to your strengths or the strengths of others, and you can burn out really easily. And then the last one is the busy block. So you talk about the jam jar. If you think about a fly that's like buzzing around, bouncing off all the walls, you walk fast, you talk fast, you go 100 miles an hour. Your to-do list, like the longer it is, the more you feel like you've achieved. But if you actually gave yourself permission to slow down and look at that list, you'd be like, very few of these tasks actually profit generating. So there's this whole idea of like you needing to be busy and talk about bouncing the baby with a foot, stirring the dinner pot, listening to a podcast, typing an email. Oh, I'm multitasking. No, I'm doing 4 things pretty badly. The busy block is that belief that, you know, the busier we are, the more we'll get done. So what I see as these blocks come up, and particularly around levels of growth, and they sabotage us, they keep us stuck in the doing. I mean, you can't possibly outsource because you're too busy to create a system. Can't possibly get help because it should be you and you're feeling very independent, and of course you can manage these things. You're not ready because, like I said about the critical block, or that no one's going to do it as well as you, can be the responsibility block. So there's these things that come up for us, and it's really a way of to demonstrate that, you know, like me, I knew how to hire. I'd been doing it all my life. I knew how to manage people. I knew how to lead people. It didn't worry me. And yet I wasn't doing it. Why wasn't I doing it? I didn't feel ready enough, big enough, clever enough, consistent enough, financially stable enough, blah, 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 blah. But in reality, that was a freedom block telling me I need to be independent. You wanted financial independence, you do it all by yourself. You keep going, you stay strong. And don't let people in. Don't show people that it's a mess behind the scenes, because you help other people with their mess. Hello, imposter syndrome. So it's a way of demonstrating that there is both a personal element to your leadership style that's affecting your business growth, as well as the practical element of how do I actually grow.
So interesting. So interesting. Where can people find that quiz if they're thinking, oh, okay, maybe this is throwing up a few little questions for me?
Come and do this. It takes 2 or 3 minutes. skyebarbour.com/quiz.
Perfect. Super simple then. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been amazing to delve into different areas or different things that I think people need to consider as they're growing, as they're scaling. But even before that, the importance of running that business in a way that works for them and not feeling guilty about getting the support that actually they should be getting anyway. So, a reminder that we don't have to do this on our own, and actually we probably shouldn't be doing it on our own. It is about you staying in your zone of genius. So thank you for sharing your words of wisdom.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, I hope you have enjoyed listening to myself and Skye. If you have got any feedback, we would love to hear that. So please do leave a review on whichever audio platform you're listening to. And I will see you on the next episode, which will be a solo one, just with myself. I'm Sarah Cook. You've been listening to the Healthy Business Podcast, and I will see you very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for listening to the Healthy Business Podcast. To get your free checklist with 1-minute hacks to accelerate your business and find out more about our community, head to my website, sarahcookmarketing.com/healthy business.